and do some good things. So we welcome in Mike Detillier on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Show is brought to you by your next video wall for your business or school. Brought to you by Sound and Communications, soundcomav.com. Mike D, how many, in the movies that we watch, you see all this wheeling and dealing in the Costner movie Draft Day and Moneyball with Billy Bean. But how many legit things do you think are being seriously considered by teams in the top 5, 10, and so on? 2 weeks out, a week out, a few days out, day of the draft with the NFL draft, Mike D.
What you try to do now that the draft is extended into deep April is as an organization, you try to run through every scenario you think could potentially happen. I've been told by general managers that we ran through, let's say, 4 dozen different scenarios, and then something out of the ordinary happens that throws everything off. One pick throws everything off. And so I think you try to become prepared for things that will happen before you pick and what happens right after you pick that could affect the next selection. But you're never going to get it right. They're lying to you when they tell you it happened exactly like we thought. Never happens exactly like you thought. But people buy into that. They really do. But, I've been around it for long enough to know that 1 or 2 things out of the ordinary happen, and it throws certain things off, and it could set a particular team off to try to make a deal to move up to get a player or two. And so, Bo, you can run it through and think you know every little detail, but you never really do, because it comes down to a personal opinion. And who's making that call? Is it the general manager? Is it the head coach? And at times, it has been an owner. Oh, yeah. Sometimes they get involved, too. And, we get it on Sports Talk a lot about, if I was there with the Saints, I would tell so-and-so this, or I would tell, Miss Benson that. Yeah, and you'd be unemployed. And you wouldn't tell them that. Not in the manner that, you texting something out, and listen, social media, it has its pluses, but come on, it's almost as though, you grew a little bit of courage to say certain things. You're not going to do that in the business world. If an owner wants a certain player, and the Saints had one early on, their initial owner, he got involved. John Meekum Jr., he got involved in a lot of selections. Tom Benson never did. Never really got involved with anything like that. That's why he hired certain people when he hired Jim Finks, when he hired Randy Mueller, Mickey Loomis. He put them in charge of that. He never got involved. But the first one, man, he got involved with basically everything. And it was who he spoke to last kind of put that idea in his head. And there are still John Meekum Jr.'s of the world in the National Football League. Do you really think the coaching staff and their general manager and all pulled the trigger on Anthony Richardson?
Jim Irsay.
It was Jimmy. That's who Irsay wanted, and that's who he got. And who's going to be there to say, Jimmy, just own the team? Yeah, okay. Well, then you can go home and stay there. Jim Finks told me this story when he had in writing with his contract that he had the say on the head coaching job. And they decided to make a coaching change, and their coach was the guy. He wasn't the guy who landed on the moon, but his name was Neil Armstrong, and he was the head coach of the Bears. And Jim decided that we got to move on. He said, I talked to at that it was Papa Bear, George Hallis, running. He owned the team, but he owned the Bears. And he said, I went in there and told him, we got to make a move, and I've got a few names in mind. He said, I gave him the names of the guys that I wanted to talk to. He said, I talked to one of them, and I had plans to talk to the second one the following day, and I get a call late one night, and it's from the Papa Bear himself. And he was, Jim, I've made a decision.
Oh, goodness.
And he said, I've hired the next head coach of the Bears. Finks told me, I told him, well, Mr. Hallis, I have a contract that says that, I'll make that decision. He says, you still got the contract, but I just hired Mike Ditka.
Oh, that's so good.
Well, needless to say, Jim didn't stay too much longer. He stayed one more year, and then he decided he moved on. He actually
went to the Saints.
Went with the Chicago Cubs.
Oh, Cubs.
He was with the Cubs for 1 year, and then he got hired by Tom Benson in the Saints. But but you'd have to have heard Jim say it. He's like, well, you still got the contract, Jim, but I hired Ditka.
That's right. And that reminds me, we're visiting with Mike Detillier, Saints NFL insider, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. This is 105.9 The Zone ESPN. I love that Mike's Jim Irsay, Mark Davis, Jerry Jones, Jimmy Haslam. You just don't ever know what the hell you're going to get. You don't know. And then Mike's saying, hey, some owners stay out of it. Some guys just let their general manager, front office, and head coach handle it. And then some owners, whether it's the last second or a month before or whenever, they're always involved. It's amazing.
And listen,
go ahead.
We had a head coach here. He was heavily involved.
Sean
Payton was heavily involved. The other story goes with when Hugh Culverhouse owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they had the first pick in the draft, and Bo Jackson comes out of Auburn. And basically, Bo has told him, do not pick me. I'm not going to play in Tampa. And he reiterated it over and over and over again. Don't pick me. If you pick me, you better have a deal out there. So Hugh Culverhouse felt he could convince Bo to play for the Bucs. And they have a sit down, and it brings him out to supper, and he tries to convince him. And Bo basically tells him, Mr. Culverhouse, I understand, but I don't want to play for Tampa. And Hugh, because he was so stubborn about things, he picked him. He never put on a uniform for the Buccaneers, sat out the entire season, signed a baseball contract, and basically got picked by the Raiders the next year and played for them. But it goes to show and his daughter, Gay Culverhouse, who passed away about 2 years ago, told me the story. We were all trying to convince my dad, you got to trade away that pick. He is not going to play for us. And you could not convince him. But, at that time, Hugh was one of the most influential owners behind the scenes in the NFL. You weren't going to tell him anything, and if he wanted to do it, he was going to do it. And a lot of that goes on today that as you mentioned, they have people that do not get involved. Tom Benson never got involved. Gail Benson's not going to get involved. And yet other ownerships people want to have their hands because they own the franchise. And now, you used to have to be a multi-millionaire. Now you got to be a multi-billionaire to own an NFL team. So, you've been successful most of the time in other businesses. Why should I not think I was going to be not successful in the sports world? they get involved.
And you see it in other spot, basketball and baseball. Those that don't, and those that do. All right, Mike D. Let's go over a couple of. Let's have some fun here. Let's look at the picks. Round one. We're talking to Mike Detillier. All right, so you're on the clock, Mike D. Tennessee Titans. What direction are they going?
I think they're going to pick Cam Ward, the quarterback from Miami of Florida. There are a lot of reasons there. You don't have a quarterback today. You have a head coach, and his expertise is in the pitch and catch part of the game. And so that would certainly lead you to believe that. Behind the scenes, you have a new GM from Kansas City. Look what Pat Mahomes did. They had a good quarterback in Alex Smith. They ended up with the greatest player in the game today in Mahomes. And you have ownership that's saying, wait a minute, the last group that came in here told me that Will Levitz was going to be my guy. And they're not here anymore. And I got a couple $1 billion of my money and NFL money set into building a new stadium. And I can't sell that stadium seat-wise, suite-wise without having a top quarterback. You find me that guy. It's going to be Cam Ward.
Okay. Cam Ward's off the board for our listeners. Mike D's playing general manager for us on the Out of Bounds show. Coming up at number 2, and they have lived at the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 position, which goes to show you how they've been run my whole life, pretty much. Cleveland Browns coming in at number 2. Who are they going to pick, Mike D?
They do not have a quarterback, and I would be surprised that they wouldn't do this. They're going to pick Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. I know other people have slotted in Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, but who's playing quarterback for the Browns? And you can see the thing with Watson has not worked out for them. They set the standard with the guaranteed money for Deshaun, and due to who knows what, and injuries are part of it, but he's never been the same guy once he left that football field with the Texans, where he was a good player.
Heck yeah.
People exaggerate, he wasn't that good. Did you not watching football?
Are you kidding me?
He was a very good NFL player.
And a great college player. Argue one of the top 2 or 3 at Clemson ever. Good grief.
And so I think they go with Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of heat too from ownership that said, okay, you guys got me to pay Myles Garrett. Now I did what I had to do. You go find me a quarterback. And okay. I think Jimmy Haslam is going to say, Shedeur Sanders, yep. He's the guy. Y'all go pick him.
All right, Mike D is on the clock. WWL Radio TV New Orleans, Saints NFL insider. He's been involved in the draft for 35 years. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Jameis Winston is now at the Giants. Dayball's hanging on by a thread. The Mara family has to be just totally mad at themselves and everything else the last 15 years. So coming up with the 3rd pick in the NFL draft from Titletown, what do the Giants do, Mike D?
I would go after Travis Hunter. If the scenario breaks out this way, that you have the 2 quarterbacks go, I'm going to pick Travis, who gives me a big play athlete at wide receiver and an immediate starter at corner. And so I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Travis Hunter from the University of Colorado. And I know you wanted the quarterback last year. How strong of a deal they tried to make for Jaden, I'm not real sure. But you pick Malik Neighbors. That was a home run hit. I think Travis Hunter would be another home run hit for the new head coach in 2026.
Okay. All right. So I tend to agree with they're not going to be able to say no to the quarterbacks, even though this isn't a strong class, because when you don't have one, you damn sure don't have a shot. So Titans, Cam Ward, and the Browns, Shador, and the Giants, who just grabbed Jameis Winston. And Jameis is not bad. People beat up on him, but the dude, he may not be great, but he can play. And then the Giants go with Travis Hunter. Hey, as far as Robert Kraft and where they are today, so Vrabel to me is a really good coach, Mike D, but you know more than we do. I actually thought he did a hell of a job with the Titans. I mean, they had a solid QB. They had some good pieces in the line of scrimmage. Derrick Henry in his prime, although he still looks good. Traded away A.J. Brown. Can't figure that out. But do you think, does Kraft, now that Belichick is gone, try to, and his son, do they try to do more in the football ops side, or are they going to let Vrabel and the GM roll? How do you see that, Mike D?
They will always have a say. I've heard interviews with Robert Kraft make comments that, hey, I own the team, I should have some say. You know, and he will always have some say with that organization. But if it plays out in this where the two quarterbacks and Travis goes, man, I would run to that podium with Abdul Carter because he would be the ideal fit for Mike Vrabel. Tough, hard-nosed coach. I think he is underrated for what he did with the Titans. And, man, you're going to get everything out of every player with him because he is one of these guys that if a player questions, why are you asking me to do this? He said, you know why I'm asking you? Because I got asked to do it and I did it.
That's right.
I played in the NFL. I'm not like most of these coaches who never played. I played. And if the scenario would work out, I think they would run to the table with Abdul Carter, who would give them an edge presence. And I could move him around because I think he could be the ultimate Joker-type player in the NFL where I put him left, I put him right. Sometimes, man, I sort of cock him right over the top of the center, and I try to get a lot of pressure put on people. Now, they need help at receiver, and so, you know, that's just a thought, but I think it's obvious you go with Abdul Carter, and I agree with you totally. I think Mike Vrabel is a one hell of a coach in this league.
Me too. And I think he could get this thing rolling again with the Patriots. All right, we're going to leave it there because we've still got a few weeks to get into Green Bay and what's going to happen in Green Bay and what could play out here. The Saints, by the way, are real quick. I got like 2 minutes, Mike D. Mel Kiper threw out Jackson Dart to the Saints. What was your reaction to that?
That's not happening. How can a guy that wasn't even on Mel's list 2 weeks earlier as a first rounder be the ninth pick in the draft? How many games got played? 0. Okay. And listen, I know Mel from way back. And, that's his opinion, but I don't see how you get a player that you didn't have as a first-round pick 2 weeks earlier, and you got him as the ninth pick in the draft. Hey, come on. But, again, when you do things television-wise, there's also cause and effect. He got a lot of people talking with that pick. He got a lot of people talking with it. I have told you, along with everybody else, I think from maybe mid-season, Jackson Dart's going in round 1. Exactly where he's going is the big question for me. I've always felt he would go probably in that range of 17 to 24 in round 1. I never thought he'd go at the ninth overall pick in the draft. So I understand why Mel did it. He's looking for a player that fits and the need. But again, that's a pretty big leap when you don't have him in round 1 at all to the ninth overall pick in the draft. In 2 weeks, and you ain't played one damn game.
I love it.
But he got tongues a wagging with that pick. And I agree with him. Jackson will go in round 1, but I felt that back in October of last year, so it's not a surprise to me. It is a league in where either you have one or you're looking for one, and somebody's gonna scratch that itch in round 1 with Jackson Dart.
We'll leave it there. Mike Detillier, Saints NFL Insider, on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Mike D, have a great week, buddy. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
At Mike Detillier on Twitter, and he's got Cam Ward off the board to the Titans, Shedeur Sanders off the board to the Cleveland Browns, and Travis Hunter to the New York Giants now that the Giants picked up Jameis Winston, Jackson Meadows' favorite quarterback. Mr. Crablegs. That guy was so funny during the Super Bowl. I mean, he's figured out new media too. We talk about some of these guys. His person, I mean, he's out there riding a bike. What was he, delivering food? I mean, the guy, he'll go out and talk to anybody. I mean, Jameis Winston and his personality is awesome. He just loves life. Kind of like you.
Jameis and I have, we have a lot in common.
I wonder if y'all wear the same jackets and shirts.
Strength, accuracy. Well, not accuracy. I'm way more accurate.
Yeah, kind of like 8 of 10 from the free throw line.
That's just easy money.
Never happening. Never, ever happening.
Won't lift a foot.
Yeah.
They got their ass kicked last year. They're soft as cotton.
We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Hour number 3 coming up at the Out of Bounds Show. Brought to you by Spring Street Cigars in Oxford and Starkville. We'll have a new Spring Street Cigars in Jackson in the building where the Rogue Men's Store and Nukes is located in about a month to 6 weeks.